started my first company when I was 18, based on a product that a friend of mine had brought back from a vacation. And I really had no idea what I was doing, but I quit my job and moved to California with $600 and wrote my business plan on a rented typewriter and lived in a motel that you rented by the week. So, but I managed to raise $50,000. There, of course, were no women investors at that point, and so I got my money from 4 brokers. So this panel is a friendly women's investor panel, and women-friendly investor panel. Sorry. All right, guys. Whoever wasn't here earlier, I do have a confession. I'm trying to. So anyway. So. Even today, though, it's predominantly men-ran companies that get the bulk of investment. In 2018, the VC capital was $132 billion that was given to startups and other companies. And women in the first quarter of this year got about $1.9 billion. So we're still kind of behind the curve on that. But thanks to women like the ones that are on my panel today and men, we're hoping to start changing that. So I would like to start introducing my panel. So I have Kristi Bowers here, and she's a marketing executive, a prominent philanthropist. Currently, she is directing her family's foundation. She's also serves as an advisor for startups. Kristi has previously worked internationally for Apple and recently has been running award-winning Kings Mountain Vineyards. So, awesome, awesome woman. Maya Brooks is from iFund Women, and she came all the way from New York to be with us. So, she's a manager, educator, speaker, entrepreneur, and currently a product manager at iFund Women. Prior to iFund Women, Maya held positions at JP Morgan Chase and Techstars. And Huo-Ming founded Upshot Ventures in 2015, then formed the firm's first early-stage focus fund, CSC Upshot. Ming is a deep technologist with more than 15 years of experience in venture capital and 10 years of experience in technology companies. So that's amazing. I would like to meet you in person someday. And everybody knows Nick Zaldastani by now, maybe not. Maybe you missed his talk this morning. He's known for his first startup success rate, focuses on entrepreneurship and organizations that positively impact the world. Currently, he is a CEO of BrainTap Technologies. Nick's 22 years as a venture capitalist brought solid returns to his investors. So, to get this panel started, I'm going to ask questions, and they're going to answer, and then we'll have a Q&A with the audience. So, as a way of introducing yourselves to the audience, I was wondering if each one of you could say a little bit about yourselves.
Hi, everyone. So my name is Maya Brooks. I'm the product manager at iFund Women. And iFund Women is a startup funding marketplace for early-stage female founders. We're designed specifically to help early-stage women-led business raise more capital, also get startup coaching, and also to make key connections that can help drive their businesses forward. When we talk about the funding gap, of course, we've all heard the stats that women get less than about 2% of all the VC funding that is available out there. And iFund Women really sees the approach and the solution to that as really a holistic issue. The funding gap just isn't about what's not being done from the VC standpoint, but also what's missing from our coaching and mentoring, right? What's missing from the key connections? Who can we get in the room with? So iFund Women takes a holistic approach to solving that problem with our platform, which includes a crowdfunding marketplace where businesses can raise money for their business directly from their communities, and also apply for grants. We have a coaching on-demand subscription model where you can talk live to a coach, a business coach who's an expert in a variety of topics. So if you need help on monetizing your product, running your Google Analytics for the first time, creating Facebook ads, we have classes and workshops and also personal coaches that can help you with that. And then from the connection side of the house, we have a private startup community full of female founders who are in the hustle with you, ready to make connections, build relationships, and help you propel that business forward. So that's kind of how we take a holistic approach to solving the funding gap for female entrepreneurs.
Huo-Ming, would you like to go next?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I hope you can all hear me okay. Again, thank you for allowing me to join this session via Zoom. And I thought this is a great example of demonstrating how, as a professional woman, we all have to balance a lot of things. And today, I just couldn't drive down to Monterey, but I'm so happy that we're able to strike this balance and allow me to be here via the latest technology, Zoom. So as Carrie mentioned earlier, I am the founding partner for Upshot Ventures. We are a $150 million early stage vehicle that's invested in diversified technology sectors. I started my career as a physicist. I got my physics degree from Wellesley College out in Boston, so that's sort of my first exposure in this friendly woman or woman-friendly environment, being a very supportive environment out of Wellesley. I got my degree in physics, and then I worked as an engineer for about 10 years. I have 3 patents under my name, and then 10 years into that, I decided that, hey, I really wanted to see how the other side lived and worked. So I went to business school, and then I became an investment banker, and then I became a venture capitalist. And then along the way, I also lived I'm mostly in California, but then for the last 6 years, I moved the family to China. So we were in China from 2002 to 2008. And then we came back in 2014, and that's when I started Upshot Ventures. So to bring it all together here, Upshot, it does not necessarily have what we call a women investment mandate, but we do look for the best company that we can invest in, and that's why we strive to create return and drive value creation for all the companies. But that said, when our company is looking to hire the first CFO, of course I look within my network and I hire Wellesley alum, one of my Wellesley sisters. I hire her as my CFO. So I think that we in the professional community in the circle, we all try to embrace and then create opportunities for women to succeed among all of us. And I'll leave it at that, and I can share others as we move on.
Okay, so I'm Kristi Bowers, and actually the hat that I wear today is CEO of FlyX Systems, and we are a startup ag tech company trying to create efficiencies and effectiveness through the use of data and AI. I'm also a trustee at Santa Clara University, and I have sort of lived my life backwards. I went to something about the 5th reinvention of myself right now. Exactly. So I went to school, got an MBA, had a family, raised some kids, got very heavily invested into philanthropy, and now I'm going back to the for-profit world. So that's where I come from.
Nicholas Zaldastani. I call myself a mentor capitalist because what I do is I work with companies and I build Series A syndicates, and with doing that I actually take an officer role at the company, typically part-time, but sometimes full-time like I am now with a company called BrainTap.
So this is a panel for women, and Nick is on this panel because I requested that he be on it because he's actually the only male that has been invited into my international women's group because he's so amazing, and he's been so helpful to all of us. So.
Great having 2 sisters.
Yes.
I have no problem.
So I'm going to get started on the questions. My first question is, I'd like to ask each of you how you got where you are today, and was there a defining moment? Who would like to go first? Ming, would you like to go first?
Yes, can you repeat our question?
I would like to ask each of you how you got to where you are today.
You need to put the microphone.
And how did you get where you are today? And was there a defining moment?
I don't think there was a one particular defining moment to say create Upshot Ventures or to become a venture capitalist. I would say that the one guiding line that I have always sort of stay abide to is to do things that I enjoy doing and to do things with people that I enjoy being with. And so that's how I got to where I am today. I made several career-changing points. I was business engineer, investment banker, and venture capitalist. I moved from Taiwan to US, to China, back to the US. At every moment though, I think that I just stay to do things that I like to do things that I enjoy doing, and do things with people that I enjoy being with.
Okay, thank you, Ming. Who would like to go next?
So similar to that answer, I haven't had necessarily one defining moment, but I will say that over the past couple of years, I've been through about 4 career changes and have tried out a lot of different things. And sometimes I think that as entrepreneurs, as founders, that's one of the things that reveals a lot to you during that process. So I started my career off in finance. When I left finance, I thought I was going to be a software engineer, took a bunch of coding classes, really dug myself in there, realized I didn't want to code 24 hours a day, became an entrepreneur, started a business, went through all this stuff, decided that I didn't want to necessarily do that business full time, or that I wasn't going to grow it to the extent that I thought that I was in the beginning, and then found that my kind of secret sauce that I loved in all of those things was taking a product from 0 to 100 and building a business from 0 to 100 with other people. So for me, finding product was kind of a journey in that whole sphere. And I learned that by just testing a lot and trying a lot. And I think that as entrepreneurs, we're used to testing a lot of stuff all of the time to find the right answer. And I think that is the defining moment.
So how I got here today is somewhat by accident. So, you know, it's a matter of when an opportunity arises or a door opens, it's being able to walk through that door and to add value. And so many of the things that I am invested in now and that I spend my time doing are passions of mine that I feel that if I can be a part of whatever that organization is, I can help move that forward. I really enjoy thinking about strategy and systems of making sure that we're running forward effectively. I hate wasting time. And I guess I'm not diagnosed, but a little ADHD in terms of my interests. So I just, you know, I get very excited about many different topics, and I enjoy investing time and effort into those things. And so that's what I'm here for.
So my father, at the age of 8, came into my room almost every night. He ran retail stores, so often he would come maybe too late for us, and I didn't know to go before. But he would ask me when I came home, "What did you learn today?" So my defining moment was when I realized my father was driving me crazy with that question, and he missed it. And it's not about what we learned today; it's about what we learned today that makes tomorrow different. And that's what I live by.
Thanks, all of you. Great answers. Okay.
Hey, Carrie, how about you?
My defining moment, you know, it's kind of interesting for me. I had asked my father, can I do something? I can't even remember what it was, and he looked at me and he said, you know, the only one who can answer that question is you. If you think you can do it, then you can probably do it. So after that, I kind of live by that, and I have had a great life, and I've worked in everything from cosmetics to nuclear energy, so I've been in a lot of different sectors, and I've had a great time. I've met incredible people along the way, so that's me. So my next question is, if you were the CEO, and some of you are, of a startup, what 5 questions would you ask an investor?
So I'll actually kind of flip this question a little and say that some of the questions we see coming from our community most often about what to ask investors or what they should be asking investors or what they need to know, I think that as a founder, some of the things you want to ask investors very early on is, what is your investment thesis, and like, do I fit into that? And part of that starts in the research phase of finding your investor. You want to know, like, right off the bat, is this investor someone who is really interested in investing in the type of company that I'm going to be running? Is this someone who believes in the vision and the future that I'm going to be running? Can I see that with the portfolio they've already built? This is some of the questions that our community asks a lot. I think it's okay to also let founders know that you can ask for the typical check size, especially if you're talking, like, and you're just having early conversations. And I see some people like, don't ask that question. But I think it's important to kind of level set some expectations. And you can ask, like, you know, how much is your typical check size? Are you writing for early stage? Are you writing Series A checks? Like, you want to know those things so that you're prepared to go into the meeting understanding full well, like, this is not going to be a $250,000 investment, right? This might be like 25, and I want to know that right off the bat. Yeah, 5 is a lot. I'll let the other panelists fill in kind of fill in 3, 4, and 5 while I think of some other things. Yeah.
So I recently met with a VC to take a look at our pitch stack, and I'm a very green startup CEO. So we had probably 10 too many slides in this stack, and there were only 15. And yeah, exactly, right. And what we were focused on, he gave me some really good advice. And what we were focused on was the how. How are we going to get this done? And what are the devices that we're going to use? And what's the software in the background? And what are the algorithms? And he said, he stopped me about halfway, and basically in so many words said, I don't really give a crap about how you do it. I want to know, what is your vision? What are you fixing? And how big is the market? And how much money are you going to make? And that's it. He says, I want to know your why. I was like, oh my gosh, facepalm. Okay, yes, I should have known this, right? I mean, that's pretty intuitive. But it was really, really great advice, and I really appreciated that. I also think somewhat similar to you and the VCs that I've met with, I don't think there's a bad question. Every single VC company has a different perspective, different interests, different theories about how they invest and what they want to do. I don't have a problem. I think asking the question, being okay with asking the question. If they want to think I'm stupid, well, fine. We'll find somebody else to invest in my company. I'm okay with that. So not being afraid of the conversation. And I think sometimes that comes with old age, which I'm getting to. So it's a little harder when you're 25 years old and fresh out of college, and that I'm not. So those are my two.
So I love this question because I always talk about the importance of asking investors questions as much as they're going to ask you questions. I start with a why of every meeting. I always think about the transformation that you're trying to accomplish. What's the pre-state, what's the post-state of the meeting you're going to have with that investor? And the post-state you want to start to build trust. So you want to think about the questions that are going to start to initiate a trusting relationship. That comes with transparency, it comes with integrity. So how do you ask questions that are going to extract out of that guy or gal that they are a trustworthy investor? That can circle around things like, what's the worst investment you made? What's the best investment you've made? I have to say that I interview a lot of investors, and sadly, every single investment round I've ever done has always had one person that I wish I had brought in. And sadly, it typically is the 25K investor. It's not the $250,000 investor. So I invite you to always think about the importance that these questions that we're going to get into here, we're going to keep on talking about, are absolutely critical, because you're interviewing someone, and everybody talks about this, that it's like a marriage. And you want to think of every one of your investors as taking a piece of your pie, and what are you exchanging for that piece of pie? Yes, there's an exchange of a monetary win, but they also bring to it knowledge. So the next set of questions I'd like to get into is, what is it that they really find that they are passionate about what you're doing? So you heard me earlier talk about the problem. I often only go to investors that really want to solve the problem I want to solve with company. So it's very important to say to the investor, you've read my deck, or you've looked at, we've had a conversation, what do you think the problem is that we're solving? See if they're going to enunciate, if they're going to articulate the same problem you're solving. Because often what happens is they will regurgitate what you're doing, but they'll do a really bad job of articulating the problem. And that's when you really know you've got an alignment. Make sure that alignment happens. Absolutely, I came to a point in my life where I said, no more drama, no more assholes, lots of fun. And I want that. So you want to ask questions around that suggest that you're going to have that type of relationship, because there's nothing worse than an asshole CEO, and there's nothing worse than an asshole investor. And so, bottom line, how do you get to that? And again, I tend to go as, what are you trying to solve in this conversation more than what you say? Questions are going to be what you make out of it, but that's a critical component. Relationship on how the investor is going to connect into the company. How do you connect to the CEO? How do you interface? Do you want to have a daily, weekly, monthly, annual? You want to know what they're expecting out of you in terms of communication and how they communicate. Some investors, I've had great investors in my life, absolute phenomenal people, like you heard earlier, Dave Duffield. If I had not had the opportunity to have a breakfast meeting with him once a month, I would have lost that wonderful opportunity. So what is it that is good? You asked me for 5.
Okay, Ming.
So I'll just add to that a little bit, just from the VC perspective. I think that one of the key elements is who is the lead investor. I think all this is great, but need to focus on the particular role of the investor. So if you're identifying, looking for a lead VC firm to come in to lead the RAM, I think it's important to understand that personal chemistry, all the questions that earlier other panelists had touched on, chemistry, mission, what you want to do is what they want to do. I think all of that is very, very important. But at the same time, I think if it's a lead investor, you need to kind of ask the question of the culture of the firm, the partnership where this person is coming from. Because as the lead, the firm is going to have to consider writing a check and another check and another check and have to carry this to the next round of financing. So you want to make sure that his or her partners are in sync with this particular investment, and you want to make sure that the firm dynamic is such that it's friendly dynamic, or how this particular person is positioned within the firm. So I would do a little bit of asking around that if you're looking for a lead investor. And then outside of that, I guess the other question I would ask is just that, as the company CEO, what are you trying to fill? So you're obviously looking for a lead, but outside the lead investor, what kind of investor do you want? Do you want somebody with industry expertise? Do you want somebody that can help you do marketing sales? Or frankly, do you just want passive money? Do you want just people that give you money and just kind of let you do your thing? So I would just kind of identify the roles that you want each of the investors to play, and then ask the questions that go into each role and build up your syndicate that way.
All right, thank you all for.
Hey, Carrie,
Yes.
have you got 5 questions?
My 5 questions. I don't know if I have 5. I guess first one of my questions would be, do they understand what it is we're trying to accomplish as a company? Do they Do they resonate with the problem we're trying to solve? Do they take an interested, active role? Do they help build collaborative relationships? And if there's a need for additional money, would they continue to invest in us, or would they have a pool of investors that they would bring on board? And I guess 5 would be, what is the typical criteria for investing in a company like mine?
Follow-on capital is important.
It's very important, I know. So, okay, what is the most frequent mistake that you guys see startups making in seeking funding? Ming, would you go first, please?
Go ahead, Ming.
Oh, sorry. Okay, I couldn't hear. I think that the most, it depends on the stage of the company. I think the biggest mistake I see in the earliest stage of the company really is just the product market fit mismatch. I think that companies so early, they just started out. Usually entrepreneurs has abundance of passion, but you need to be able to narrow it down to that product market fit so that you tee it up to execute successfully to the next phase. And then as the company gets more mature, I think the mistake that I often see is the hiring, is the team. Is in the beginning, it's you yourself plus a couple of your best friends, 4 or 5 people. It's great, everybody's in sync, the team gels, the chemistry is great. And then as the company builds and matures, I would say over and over again is the people. Is who do you bring in that make sure that everybody still share that same passion, share that same mission, and wanted to drive it together. So over and over again is that. And then once you bring in a person, it's very difficult to get rid of that person if it happened to be a mismatch. So there's a lot of time and energy and time sink around surrounding that. So those would be the 2 areas that I would identify.
So how often have you all done a pitch or seen a pitch where vision is the first or second slide? So what does that do? That sets me up to think of something so grandiose that I almost have a tough time figuring out whether this company is going to be able to do it or not. And I think way too often companies don't think of their growing of the business like a game of chess, where you've got to take steps, baby steps, and moves based on what's happening out there in the real world. And so often people put that vision and think because they put that vision right up front that everybody gets it. I think a vision slide is a fantastic way to end a pitch because it shows where you could possibly go. But in the process, you've built a real great communication and trust between whoever you're pitching and yourself around things that are very solid. So the mistake I think people make is they don't think about the baby steps that it takes to get to that even first major milestone. And they go right to this, we're going to be, the greatest thing since sliced bread type of thinking. So cut down your vision and make it really executable.
We're gonna let the audience ask some questions, and we're starting to run a little late here, so get up.
Didn't realize I was going to get the mic. Just curious for the entire panel to comment on where they see some of the most interesting markets related to women investing. So, I do a lot of work in the emerging cannabis space, and I think there's huge opportunity there. What do you guys like? What do you like?
Should I go?
Yes, Ming, please go.
Ming, go ahead. Okay, so we have a company called NURX, spelled N-U-R-X, and it's a digital health company that focuses on women's health. The company started at YC 2 years ago, and the idea really is to be able to deliver birth control pills to every woman when they need it. As we all know that when we need a birth control pill prescription refill, you still have to go see your doctor every month, and it's still a process. So what NeoRx does is to merge the telemedicine, where you can speak to your doctor on your phone, so that they can track some of your metrics that they need to track before they allow you to renew your prescription. And then they have a pharmacy delivery system called NeoRx Pharmacy, and then that would deliver that medicine to you at the time you action. So the company started out doing birth control, and that continues to be the biggest area. But now we're moving into other areas of women's health and focus on home test aid kits. So that's an area where I think it's a big space, and we're very bullish with how that company is progressing. So that would be one example of women-related investment space.
No, just one.
Hi, I work in digital wellness, transformative tech, women's health stuff, and I'm curious from those who invest or from that side, women's health, femtech is a big space, lots of women in it, and yet I see male CEOs pitching menstrual cups, and on one side I love it because I think like, oh, it's great that a guy is talking about periods, but on the other side I wonder like, why is this a woman? So from an investor standpoint, do you sort of differentiate, or do you kind of look that you'd rather have more women in this space? Because it's frustrating as a women's like startup founder who sees all the men everywhere, and just wondering how the investors deal with femtech on top of men.
So I think that women need to take ourselves out of the women box and stop worrying about things like this and start worrying about the product and the solution. And who cares if I mean, I'll go sell prostate stuff. I don't care. Okay, you know, I mean, I don't have one. Okay, great. In the other panel that we just saw, there was somebody who developed something for becoming a bracelet that makes you cool when you have menopause. I said, well, that's not a woman's product. That's a man's product. Okay, because every man wants women in menopause to have one. So, you know, I mean, that's how it works. And so I think that we, as women, we want to be out of the woman box, but we continue to put ourselves back into it. So be in business and be the woman right underneath it. And I wouldn't worry as much about who's running the company, as long as they're doing a good job.
Can I follow on, guys?
Just really briefly, that one of the mistakes I see people make a lot in pitches, and I've watched a lot of pitches, is underestimating their market opportunity, or saying like, our market opportunity is like, 40 million. I need to hear billions. Most like investors will tell you like, we need to hear billions. If you're thinking that your market opportunity is only for women, think about the fact that like 50% of the world's population is women. So it's not a niche, right? It's not a small market, it's not a tiny opportunity, it's a massive opportunity that extends beyond just use cases for women. So I want to just like leave that as a takeaway for the room.
Oh, 1 minute. We have 1 minute. One more question, guys.
I have a quick question. Okay, so, I have a question about valuation. So, the entrepreneurial finance books will give you 40 ways to value a business. What is the quick and dirty method that you guys prefer? I know, but I wanted, it's so hard, but like, I had somebody tell me based on projections their company was worth $2.2 million the other day. I nearly fell off my chair. I know. So anyway, I was just wondering what you guys prefer and what you see in the space.
Okay, Nick, you gotta be quick though.
Let the VC go first.
Okay. So, yeah, valuation sometimes is an art rather than a science.
Or where you live.
I hate to say that. But again, depending on the stage of your company. If you're very, very late stage, you're a FlyX or you're Uber or whatever, you have a lot of financial numbers. So that goes into a lot of that financial number, and there's a whole model on that side. On the earlier stage side of things, mathematically, we have a bit of, what's it for a particular sector, for a particular industry, what's the likely multiple range. So if you have revenue, if you don't have revenue, and then what is that multiple, that revenue multiple. But a lot of us actually don't have revenue at the time that you go out and fundraise, so what do you do? So then that's where I advise company to really figure out what is it that is going to show the performance of your company. Is it by numbers of users? Is it by numbers of partnership we sign? Is it by the size of the deal that you get? Figure that one out and make that into a concrete example of, to show you going from point A to point B, this is what's important to us. And once you have that, then you articulate or you try to have a bit of a value around that. So that's where a little bit of more art will come into play. But that is how we kind of do it. But at the end of the day, the valuation really is just market. It's a bid and ask, and both sides just have to meet. And then it just depends on what the company does, and that is the market price. At the end of the day, that is what it is.
Thank you, Ming. I want to thank my panel, Maya, Kristi, Nick, and Ming, for taking the time to participate today. And I want to thank all the audience for coming.